Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Chris Lee. Commodore fans, on your feet. It's time to anchor down.
Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast presented by Dr. Jody Jones DDS. We're part of the 440 Sports Network. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today, Luke Wyatt. We'll talk Vanderbilt baseball, national seeding picture, pitching staff issues, beating Arkansas 2 out of 3, all the things that folks are talking about coming out of the weekend. So without further delay, here is today's episode, which was recorded on Monday morning with Luke Wyatt. Luke Wyatt joins us. It is Monday morning. Vanderbilt won a series in improbable fashion against Arkansas. I think that did wonders for fan morale and maybe team morale too. There was some interesting comments that Tim Corbin made in the Saturday post game that we did. You can see those on our YouTube channel at Vandy Sports. He mentioned, I think, confidence maybe being an issue. I'll let him use his words rather than me trying to paraphrase those. In any case, that is a long preamble for our introduction to Luke Wyatt. But Luke, you were there, I think, for all 3 games. I was not. I was only able to make one. But first of all, thank you for joining us, and I hope you're doing well.
Doing great, Chris. And, yeah, I was there for all 3. And, the first night it started very ominous with the errors and the unearned runs, and you're thinking, my goodness, we're back home, but you can still see how tight the kids were. And, people want to call it poor play. Yes, of course it was poor play, but there's a reason for all of that. And it started when the pitching woes had happened with Carter and with Hunter and 2 or 3 others that haven't been there for us. And I just felt like the kids were squeezing the bats and even tightening the field. And that's one thing we were counting on that hasn't changed much was the defense. So once that happened, you're thinking, my goodness, we've hit rock bottom. And I think we kind of did. You get into Saturday, same thing. We're not barreling many balls. Or the ones we do barrel, Arkansas is making outstanding plays on. And you think, well, okay, if we could just not necessarily win this game, but come back, play well, and then we have the incredible 8th. Which, that started with a bunt, with a walk, with a hit batsman, and that's usually how it goes. And then you just get with that one big hit, which Troy Lene provided to put us on top. And, for the first time this year, Hawkins Field sounded like it did during about the 07-08 season when we were winning games and tournaments. It was really nice to hear and see, and that turned us around, and we played really solid baseball. Again Saturday, and they've put themselves, I think, Chris, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think we will be a national seed more than likely.
Well, let's hit that first, and there's a lot of stuff to hit here today. I think the seeding picture is what was on everybody's mind as we exited the weekend. And I was just listening to D1's podcast. It came out this morning on picking the field. They had Vandy as the 7, 1 spot behind Clemson. I might reverse it. In fact, I'm going to see if I can pull up my math here. I guess Clemson, if you want to go hotter team, Clemson would certainly get the edge. Clemson would get the edge in terms of having 1 spot up on the RPI, having a tougher schedule. But by the metrics, I don't know that Clemson's schedule was really tougher, but the computers say what they say. Let me see if I can find my math on this, because I think the problem with Clemson and Vandy is as you separate those two, it seemed like Clemson missed some of the heavyweights in the ACC this year. That may not matter at all, but in any case, those are my thoughts on it. D1 this weekend had Clemson as the 6 overall seed and Vanderbilt as a 7, and they went on to say that it felt like there were 9 teams vying for 8 spots national seed-wise. Virginia would have been another one, and Coastal Carolina would be another one. And it said it kind of felt like 7 were locks, Vanderbilt being the 7th in that series. But as they said, and I've said the same thing, you just don't know. Something happens crazy in conference tournament play, then that may not be the case. But I think the point they were making is the one that I was kind of trying to make over the weekend, that they're in really, really, really good shape entering the SEC tournament to be a top 8 overall seed. And I think it's hard to justify leaving them out of that top 8 right now.
Well, I don't know this, and you may. I don't remember a 19-11 conference mark ever being not a top 8 seed, because Arkansas was 18 last year. He got left out, but 19 wins in the SEC. That's one less than everybody else. Florida and Arkansas, and the same amount of wins as LSU. So, I mean, goodness gracious. What else can you do? If you're not a top 8 seed, then I don't know what you have to do to be one.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times conference tournament seeding might matter a little bit, and Vanderbilt being a top 4 in that.
Right.
And I answered this on the board. I think sometimes that conference record is sort of evergreen. The wins in conference tournaments count, but that 19-11 is locked in. And right. I think it's going to be hard to justify knocking them out of the top 8 national picture, barring Vanderbilt dropping out of the top 8 of RPI.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Hoover and we play either Auburn or Missouri in game 1, if you get beat, say you get run ruled in that game and lose 7-2 in the second game, maybe you drop out. I don't know. You look at what Mississippi State did last year. It was obvious they didn't care. And I think D1 and everybody else understands, there's 2 different ways to approach this. There's certain teams that have a lot to prove when they get to Hoover. There's certain teams that don't. And I put us in that category. The only thing I would like for us to play 3 or 4 games just to get some guys some work pitching-wise, and to get some more ABs for guys who have been slumping. But wow, I just don't see. I don't see a scenario where we're not top 8.
Yeah, I think the problem in Hoover, obviously, Vanderbilt needs to get pitchers healthy and rested. And I'm going to throw this out there: I don't expect Carter Holton to throw another pitch this year. Right. Just based on a little bit I heard this weekend, I'm not going to go any further than that. I would be surprised if we see Carter Holton pitch again in a Vanderbilt uniform this year. So there's that.
And it'll be interesting. No, excuse me, Chris. It'll be interesting. We have a regional. Would it be Ginther? I don't think so. I think you're probably going to see a Bryce Cunningham or a Sam Leboke as that third guy.
Yeah.
It also depends on how the first game or 2 in the tournament goes as well. You have to win games as they come. So you may have to use a Ginther or a Leboke in game 1, say. Let's say Hunter Owen gets to pitch and can only go 3 innings, and you need to fill those innings. You may have to go Leboke or Cunningham in that one. So you just have to win them as they come. It does put us in a tougher position to try to get out of a regional. But I still think they can do it as long as they keep swinging the bats they have the last 11 innings.
Yeah, and I think their pitching staff plays better down in that park. And by the way, I think you left one guy out, David Horn. I think I might trust David Horn to start more than anybody right now.
No, I agree with that. In most regionals, sometimes you don't get 3 straight, so you're going to have a 4th starter. And I think that's David Horn right there for sure.
Well, Schultz's issue has been giving up home runs. That's been the primary issue. Some days he just gets hit hard, like he did in that 5th inning or 4th inning or whatever it was on Saturday. But you got him, you got Leboke, kind of same thing. Leboke is a guy that when the ball doesn't get out, he doesn't put a lot of guys on. That fastball can be a little tough to handle. I think their guys play. I mean, and look, we've said this for I don't know how many years now. I just think that park fits some of what they want to do. I'm not saying they're going to go down there and win the thing and just dazzle everybody with pitching, But if they go down there and you see better outings from Schultz and Leboke and some of these guys, and you've seen all year, and Bryce Cunningham in there too, because Cunningham's a guy that I think the confidence was just shot, knowing that the ball could get out at any moment. In Hoover, it's a lot more forgiving, unless the wind's blowing out, which that does happen sometimes. I'm just saying, if something happens where they go down there and some of these guys that the fans are low on, and for reasons I can understand, if some of those guys throw a lot better and one of those guys even gives him a 5 or 6 inning outing with no runs or 1 run or whatever, I don't think that's totally off the table. I mean, maybe they go down there and collapse too, but I just think it's a better situation for them to pitch in. And I think their pitching is about as suited, even without Holton, is anybody that's going to be down there, depending on how they play it, and a lot of that's going to be Hunter Owen.
I'm going to go out on the limb a little bit here and make a prediction that a guy that will pitch well at Hoover, and if we make it to Omaha, would be a Grayson Carter. I think he's real close. If he gets his control down, that kid in a big park should be really, really effective. I think it gave him a boost of confidence to come in and get that big out the other day. I realized why you go straight to Maldonado after that. I get that. It was a great decision, but I really like that kid. He's a big, strong kid, and any kind of confidence he got from that could go a long way for us.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the stat sheet as we do this because my one hesitation with him would be control.
Yeah,
because if walks are universal, that hurts you in any park. And the other thing I want to check is wild pitches, because that could be an issue down there, and he threw 5 of them in 28 2/3 innings. Because when one gets by the catcher, it's not going to be Hawkins Field, where you could get a friendly ricochet back to the catcher and get an out at home that you didn't really earn. That in Hoover, when it gets by the catcher, unless he gets a piece of it or it nicks the umpire, you're in trouble.
Right. Absolutely.
So, speaking of that, Vanderbilt threw 28 wild pitches this year. Opponents threw 46 against them. So maybe Vanderbilt even benefits a little bit by getting some gift runs from other teams, which, oh, by the way, have you ever seen a team balk in 2 runs in an inning with two different pitchers?
No, but you know what? I watched. They were both legitimate calls. I was surprised by that. I was really surprised. And you could tell Coach Van Horn never complained. Even the pitching coach, none of them said anything. They knew they were balks. So, but no, I haven't. I have not. In fact, I was looking at Southeastern Conference stats last night. The most balks by any team is Arkansas with 6, and they had 2 of them in our game. So,
man,
yeah, crazy.
Well, let's flash back. I'll go ahead and take my medicine here. I could not make the. I was going to let that go. Oh, okay. Well, I'll be harder on myself than you were going to be. Here's my, and this is a little bit of my frustration. I'm just the margins of life for me are not very big right now. I couldn't get out to the park this weekend for the first 2 games, and I don't have anybody to help me as backup. So I'm actually watching, and the Friday game, for full disclosure, I was at the Billy Joel concert. That was my Christmas present for my brother. And so I was there, and I was waiting for Billy Joel to get on stage, and I just had been watching the game on Game Tracker a little bit and started watching a little bit on my phone at the first, and it just didn't start well in any form or fashion. And 8-2, the way they've been hitting, I've just thought that's insurmountable. But I flip on my phone, or didn't flip it on. I don't have a flip phone. I pull up my phone. I notice it's 8-3. It's like, well, I'll check out the TV feed of this for a bit, just see where it's going. And that's when the whole thing started. And I'll give you a funny story. I don't know if you ever knew Thomas Samuel. He was the media relations guy at Vandy for, I don't know, about 7 or 8 years maybe.
Yeah, I remember.
This would have been 06, 07-ish on through maybe 5 or 6 years. But Thomas and I got to be really good friends. Just one of the most genuinely funny people I've ever been around. We shared a couple of road trips when he was doing media relations stuff, and I had time to travel to road games and stuff. And so I spent a lot of time with Thomas. Got to be pretty good friends with him. And we stay in touch. We text a couple times a year. So I'm sitting there, Billy Joel. He texts me, and he says, I'm just hearing things about this team, what's wrong with them. And I was sending him back a text, and I just said, well, it's been the pitching injuries have been a big thing. I think they've lost their confidence in hitting. I think that's now taken its effect on fielding. They got a few arms. I don't know that they're going to get back. And I just think, throwing a bad break like the home run to start the game, which how in the world that doesn't get overturned? The worst part of that was not blowing the call. It was taking 10 seconds to review it and confirm a call that was, if you took any time, obviously a bad call. That ball passed in front of the foul pole. And how that got missed, I don't know. But it just seemed like it was at a point where everything was sort of going against them. And even the one thing that had been ironclad had been the defense, that's going. And that's when I sit there and I say, okay, look, this is sort of bigger than that, and it's baseball. Because as you've said, the team looked tense at the plate. I think that was carrying over to the field. And then you add in the weight of the world with trying to clinch a home seed, and Tim Corbin and the pitching staff, or the pitching coach, Scott Brown, trying to thread that needle of, okay, we need to get a couple of wins here this weekend to feel good about things, but how do we do that without ruining an arm?
Right.
And so it just seemed like at that point everything is against him. And it's funny, Thomas texts me, and I'm just telling him, hey, if you haven't been watching from afar, this is what's going on. And I'm not kidding you. In the time that it took me to send him a couple of texts and explain everything that had been going on, that game went from 8-3 to 10-8.
Well, I think you and I were texting too during that time a little bit, and you were saying basically you thought that we were done, and of course 90% of the people did. I didn't, and here's why. I just think that it always starts when you least expect it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just takes a bunt. It takes a get hit by a batsman. It takes a bunt that should have been caught that pops up in the air and they don't catch it. That once you get that, all it takes is one big hit, and that's really what it. I mean, of course, there were several factors, but even at that, Chris, and something that could have snuffed the rally completely was the great catch that the Arkansas kid made on Enrique's fly ball where they collided, and the kid still hangs on the ball. We only get one run out of that. That should have fell in.
Yeah.
We'd still been batting maybe right now. So, that inning, our kids just let it loose, and it takes something like that. It's just so tough. And I text Corbin something that I can't say on the radio right now, but I was making a comp, and it's just one of those things. You know how you feel like, I guess, if you've got a sore back and it finally breaks and your back feels better, and you can walk and you can go out and do the things you used to do. That's what it felt like. And the kids, once that, they were just loose as shell corn after that. And Enrique, you could see that on Enrique's catch the next inning when he robs a possible home run or at least a double in the top of the ninth.
That was a home run, by the way.
What's that?
That would have been a home run.
Yeah, I knew it was really close. I mean, nothing he does surprises you, that's for sure.
No.
But that one, couldn't have been timed any better. I'm just happy for the kids. I'm really happy for a kid like Troy Leneve and TJ McKenzie, who on their senior nights get to show out in front of their families. And wow, Troy, and you could tell that Corbs really respects a kid like him because he is set back. And, I know he's had some issues with the shoulder and some healthy issues, but that had kind of messed with his swing. We saw that with Carter Young last year.
Yeah.
I really feel like that, I'm not saying Troy's going to hit 5 home runs in postseason, but he gives you that threat that we didn't have that would add with a Shrek to where you have two guys with a lot of pop now in the lineup.
Yeah, and this is where I depart from a lot of people that are critical of them. Is I'm a that's baseball guy until I have reason not to believe. It's why I like run margins and Pythag records and a lot of the things that are good at sorting out, at least at the major league level, what is a fluke and what's not. And I believe in those a lot. That right. Vernacular just has not made its way to the college game for reasons I still don't understand, but it is what it is. But I think where I depart from that is these guys aren't pros. They're college kids. They got classes. They got a lot of stuff. They're not as mature in a lot of ways. And at some point, it becomes mental. And when it does become, simple plays that you were making before all season that you're not making in the field and things like that hadn't been an issue, that's kind of where I jumped off. I mean, I always knew, obviously, can you come back at any time for the reasons that you said so well, but you do start worrying when it gets to be this late in the year and you're still in the back of your head thinking, you remember how poorly that LSU series went last year. Sometimes things are just coincidence, and maybe that's what that was. But that's kind of where I made the jump this weekend from, okay, I can sort of explain a lot of this to, maybe I'm the one that's because look, after a while when they're playing really poorly and you're still kind of giving reasons and it continues to go badly, you're thinking to yourself, like, am I the one taking crazy pills here? And I kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, I was wrong on these guys and everybody else was right. And literally the instant I flipped is when it went back.
Well, I mean, we can go back to as little as last year, Chris. We looked horrible, even winning at times last year toward the end. Carter Young, bless his heart, couldn't catch a ground ball. We had all kinds of issues. You had the Isaiah Thomas issues. There was all kinds of things going on with that team, and they still almost made a super regional. So, I mean,
yeah,
that was playing at probably a 30 or 40% capacity. So I just think that Tim does such a good job, and not just Tim, but that whole staff, of fighting through the muck. And that's what we were in. We were in the muck. We were stuck in the mud. The confidence was low. Everything was low. But what else can you do except the next at bat and the next pitch? And that's how they do it. And, you get criticized for that sometimes, possibly, because it seems like, wow, what are they doing? They keep playing the same. They keep repeating the same stuff over and over. No, you just got, the baseball cards, the averages those kids have, it'll flip back around most of the time.
This season of the Vandy Sports Podcast has been made possible by my friend Dr. Jody Jones, DDS. When it comes to general or cosmetic dentistry services, Jody is the best in Nashville. Just check out his client list. It testifies to that. He sees movie stars, music stars, athletes, coaches, you name it. Jody is the dentist of choice for stars in Nashville, but he sees regular folks like you and I as well. What people love about Jody's office is the ambiance. It's relaxing. It's friendly. Someone described it to me as a tooth spa. Whether your needs are general or cosmetic, go see Jody today. Call him 615-270-2322. See him at 55 Music Square East, not far from downtown or the Vanderbilt campus. Jody is a former Vanderbilt football player and a huge Commodore booster, so go and talk Vandy sports with him while you're there. Go see Jody Jones today. Thank him for his support of this podcast, because without it, this season would not be possible. Sorry, we had a little disconnect on the audio there, but I was reminded of, did you watch, I'm sure you've seen this. Have you ever seen the extended version of the Lindsey Scott touchdown for Georgia that beat Florida in 1980, the Larry Munson called that the famous play? And the whole thing is hilarious. Like, not just the call, but there's an extended version. You can find this out there on YouTube, and I love to listen to it because he stops his run, Lindsey, run thing, and then you hear maybe, 30 or 45 seconds of silence, and you just hear the crowd going crazy, which was appropriate anyway. I think as an announcer in that moment, you kind of let the moment speak for itself. And then the next thing you hear from Larry Munson is he talked about how he broke his chair and all the, so, it wasn't just him being quiet. I guess he fell out of his chair. And then as he had a minute to reflect, he said something about, admit it, you gave up on him. I did too. And here we are. And I thought that was like the appropriate sort of way to phrase the weekend.
Yeah. There's a time when every sports fan, and it's human nature, you say, well, that's it. You leave early, and I saw several fans leave early, and I'm sure they hated it when they got in their car and it was 10-8. I'm sure they're thinking, what the heck happened? But I've just watched too many baseball, and that's just being an old man. I've seen too many baseball games. And I was also at the game when we came back and beat Ole Miss in the Southeastern Conference tournament. So I've seen these kids, not those kids, but I've seen Vanderbilt do it before when we were down to Ole Miss, whatever it was, 9-1 or whatever, and come back and win. I just don't ever give up on them, because I just know that baseball is baseball, like you said.
Yeah, and I want to give you just some things. I know people worry about the pitching depth and everything, and I say this over and over, and I don't think people really understand it. And of course, I'm at a different place as I'm looking literally every day. I get a stat feed of every player in the SEC, so I'm spending a lot of time combing over that and doing comparisons. And people say, "Well, Vanderbilt doesn't have enough pitching," blah blah blah, and I'm always going, "Well, wait a minute." You've got to compare them to everybody else, because everybody else is in this predicament. I'm going to give you some numbers for a couple of pitching staffs, okay? Florida's your SEC champ. I'm going to just give you a list of their pitching. And let's see, I think I got this sorted by innings. So I'm going to give you like the top 8 on some of these staffs. Brandon Sproat for Florida. This is their top 8 or 9 in innings pitched. ERA 4.85, base runners per inning 135. Hurston Waldrop, they're 2. ERA 4.83, base runners per inning 151. Jack Caglione, ERA 3.96. It was 5.05 in the league. Base runners per inning 1.47. Ryan Slater, their closer, or one of their chief middle relievers. ERA 3.74. Runners per 9, or runners per inning 135. Brandon Nealer, their closer. ERA 3.65. Runners per inning 132. Cade Fisher, key relief arm, ERA 3.69, runners per inning 151. Nick Ficarata, another key bullpen guy, 4.60 ERA, 161 runners per inning. Philip Abner, ERA 3.76, runners per inning 157. Frankly, I'm surprised some of these ERAs are as low as they are because of the runners. And sometimes the difference between a bloated ERA and one that looks okay is, you got Enrique Bradfield in center taking away a grand slam with 2 outs, where if he doesn't make the play, it's 4 runs. That's extreme, but you get what I'm saying. LSU, this was the number 1 team in the country until a couple of weeks ago. Paul Skeens, 177 ERA, 0.77 runners per innings pitched. Ty Floyd, 4.59, their number 2 starter, 131. Riley Cooper, best reliever, 5.93 ERA, 163 runners per inning. Thatcher Hurd, 6.59, 178. Christian Little, 7.09, 173. Blake Money, 5.97, 151. Griffin Herring, 3.55, 179. That's their top 7 or 8 arms available right now. I'm going to give you, let's see. I'm going to give you Arkansas, because Arkansas probably had the best pitching situation in the league coming into the weekend. And I had somebody who was talking to a friend saying, man, Arkansas's pitching just isn't very good. I said, well, I think they'd given up fewer runs than anybody in the league, but everybody looks bad right now. That's the point I'm making. Will McIntyre leads them in innings pitched, 5.05 ERA, 145 runners per inning. Hunter Holland, 4.11, 150. Hagen Smith, 2.56, 135. Cody Adcock, 5.36, 143. Dylan Carter, he's done, so I'll skip him. Gage Wood, 381 and 160. Zach Moore, 752 and 188. Now I'm going to give you Vandy. And again, we'll throw Carter Holton out of it because I don't think he will pitch again. Devin Futrell, 316, 112. Is Bryce Cunningham their next guy in innings pitched? Is that right?
because Hunter Owen's been out for 2 weeks.
Yeah. No, I missed Owen. Owen is ahead of him. 316 and 112. So you got two elite guys right there. Then comes Cunningham, 6'10", 147. Leboke, 5'40", 141. Riley, 6'38", 182. Ginther, 303, 124. Carter, 408, 174. Schultz, 570 and 159. And Grayson Moore, 360 and 150. Not to mention Horn. Horn is 540 and 168, but I think there's more in there, and there's also Jack Anderson. So, yeah, the pitching numbers. And out the best guy, Maldonado, 161 and .75. Skeens is the only pitcher in the league that gave up fewer runners in an inning than Maldonado.
Yeah,
and then Ginther, I thought I said Ginther, it's 303 and 124. So you start stacking their guys up, you start making a list 1 to 8. They're probably in better shape than anybody, even without Carter Holton.
Yep, I know. That's why I'm not as panicky about not having it, but I do think someone's going to have to step up, obviously. And, Patrick Riley, I still love his stuff, but when he's like he was the other day, you can almost just go ahead and take him out because he doesn't ever recover. You know what I mean? He just doesn't recover. If he starts out that way, he's going to stay that way. And I don't know what it is about him starting, but the kid I don't know if it's a mental block or just coincidence, but every time he starts, he's just not effective at all because of his control.
Yep.
Now,
that's been true.
I'm with you on one big thing. When we go to Hoover, I want to see Patrick Riley on the mound in one of those first two games, whether it's a starter, reliever, or whatever, because that big ballpark may give him some confidence where he can start throwing strikes and not feel like, I have to be perfect with my pitches. And the same thing with Thomas Schultz. Thomas, it's all location with Thomas. He had a great freshman year, then a bad second year, and last year was good, this year down. And it's all, you go back and look at some old film of it, it's all location. And that's it with Thomas. His stuff's okay, just his location.
Looking at Hoover for a minute, probably they get Auburn. Game 2, Auburn had, this courtesy of D1 Baseball, Auburn had the best record in the SEC over the second half of the conference season. So they're catching a red-hot Auburn team that, frankly, needs, I don't know. Auburn could lose to Missouri and still get a hosting spot, or could beat Missouri and lose to Vandy, still get a hosting spot. 17-13 record, that was 5th outright in the league. I think that's going to be pretty loud, especially with the way Auburn finished. But a team that may have a little bit to play for. And Auburn, I think pitching becomes a little bit of an issue for them day 3. Just like it is for everybody. But day 1 and 2, they're a lot better. They've got Tommy Vale and a couple other kids who've thrown well for them. And so that's one of those that you hope, if you're Vanderbilt and you're looking to win a game, that maybe Auburn, Missouri goes to extras, and you certainly don't want to see it run ruled. But they're a team that's really hitting the ball and is kind of a dangerous matchup. That's not a team that you really, I think, want to see in Hoover right now.
Right, I agree with that. I'll go ahead and make a prediction. I think Kentucky and Alabama, the winner of that game, may go a long way. Whichever one wins Alabama
is, if there's, Alabama should end up hosting, I believe. Got a little bit of work to do, but I've been high on them for a while, and Alabama led the league in run differential, by the way. I bet you wouldn't have guessed that, but I think that's a really good team.
I agree with you. I think these first games, I'm really excited about watching tomorrow because there's a lot of interest in those games. I mean, Georgia, of course, has to win a bunch of games to get in. Auburn, as you just mentioned, the Missouri game. Tennessee A&M, it's single elimination, so Tennessee's basically playing for a regional too. I think if they lose to A&M, they may not get a regional. And A&M has to win a couple or three to even come close. I think they're in the tournament, but I think they have to really go deep in the tournament to get a host.
Yeah.
So every game has interest in them. And then my favorite one of the day is Alabama, Kentucky.
Oh, yeah, that'll be – I mean, I think all the games – it's funny, 2 weeks ago, I just thought this was going to be the most meaningless SEC tournament that we've seen in a while.
And
I don't feel that way at all. I mean, you got 9 teams that could host. I think you've got 10 teams that are in. That's the one thing is I don't think anybody's going into that event having to get wins in order to make the field of 64. And I don't think anybody in those bottom 4 is going to get there barring winning the tournament, which I don't give any of those teams much of a shot. But suddenly the hosting thing, like everything broke in a way that made the event more interesting because now you got Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee all could host, same with South Carolina or not.
Yeah, I think South Carolina's in trouble. I think they have, we were talking about how poorly we were playing because of injuries for them. They don't look like the same team. They did win against Tennessee in those 2 7-inning games. They won one, but they look like a shell of themselves to me.
Yeah, I think injuries, some teams responded okay to injuries. Alabama was one that did okay. Arkansas was a team that really somehow kept losing key guys and kept getting stronger. Vanderbilt went through its issues. Yeah.
Something else that we haven't talked about Alabama, losing their coach. And it seems to have been, as silly as it sounds, a positive for those kids. They seem really
I don't think
loose.
it's silly at all.
Yeah. I mean, they just look like they're having that you would never guess they've had any kind of controversy. So, like you said, kids respond in a different way, and good for them. They responded the right way.
If somebody's smart, somebody somewhere is doing a long form piece on pitching decisions in that close game, in close games under the previous regime.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
You go back really, of course, you could go back and look at everything probably about who, like
right, pitch hitters, right, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. It's just crazy. I hate that that's gotten into, and I haven't heard anything else about the Iowa situation in baseball. I don't know what's going on there, but that was crazy.
Yeah, that one appears to be just kids betting on other stuff. I don't think there was anything. It sounds like there was nothing nefarious there. Now, I haven't checked on it in a week or two, but it sounded like kids aren't supposed to gamble on anything. And I think that was just kids gambling on stuff. So,
well, I will say this, and I go back to my days at Vanderbilt here. I know for a fact that kids in other sports bet on other sports. It just happens, legally or illegally. It just does. It may not be a lot of money, but, for date money, I call it date. The college kids call it date money. I need $100 to take Susie out on Friday night. I'm gonna bet $100 on Florida to beat Georgia in football or something.
Yeah, let's see. Let's do the mailbag now. Are you ready?
Sure. Yeah.
The mailbag is presented by Sutherland and Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one's been hurt in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call at 615-846-6200. See what your rights are and if they can help. I think I'm going to go in order of sport here. We'll start with baseball, then move to basketball and football. Door Fan 6, who are you and Chris's picks to win the SEC baseball tournament and why?
I'll go first if you want me to. I think the winner of Kentucky, Alabama will. Because I don't think
interesting.
The top 4 is going to. I don't think any of the top 4 will be interested in. So I'm going to go with the winner of that.
Let's see. The 2 teams that come to mind are Tennessee and Florida. Alabama would be another one. Yeah, whoever wins Alabama, Kentucky plays Florida Wednesday 4:30. Florida's got a lot of arms and can hit the daylights out of the ball. So I don't feel as great about that based on the matchup. Tennessee will have to get by Texas A&M, which I think it will because of the pitching. Arkansas, I just don't think Arkansas's got a lot to play for. And the rest of that bracket is South Carolina, Georgia got their issues. LSU got its issues. Tennessee's going to go down there to play to win. It did last year with nothing to play for. This year it's got something to play for. I think Tennessee's got as many arms as it can use as anyone. I'm going to go with Tennessee for that reason.
Okay.
All right, next question. Let's see. Baseball Bros, was that one of the most unexpected run outbursts you've seen in your time at Vanderbilt on Friday in the 8th inning? I mean, nobody saw that coming.
Yeah, no. Like I said, once you get the little things happening, the bunt, hit by pitch, and the walk, that's what usually ignites that type of stuff. And but do you see it coming? Of course not. It's just, but you can see that it can happen. It can always turn on a dime, which I think I said that to somebody the other day.
Yeah, you may have. Okay, VU65, do you believe Corbin will use NIL to give each baseball player enough money to pay the deficit to pay the full cost of attending Vanderbilt?
I have no idea how. I have never had a conversation with him about it. You may have. I don't know how he feels about it. I'm afraid to almost go there because I know how he really feels about it. So to be honest, I don't know. I have no idea.
Maybe this ties into the next couple of questions because they're about NIL and other sports. GLH4VU, with VU seeming to offer NIL to transfers, how much a difference does that make in what Stackhouse can and should accomplish in the portal? I'm going to start with another statement I'm going to make, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, and I don't know the truth. Just file this one under the category of stuff that I used to have time to do that I don't now. The whole NIL thing is still a little bit of a mystery to me, but it seems to me like basketball gets a lot more support than the others get. Well, and I don't know why that is. I have some theories that I will not espouse here.
I think you may be right, and here's why. I think as far as alumni base, sidewalk fans, everybody understands Vanderbilt can win in basketball, and why. Here's why. Number one, you have a great venue and you can have a home court advantage when you're winning. Number two, that's been the bell cow sport at Vanderbilt since I've been born, was basketball. They've never made a Final Four, but they've been to several Sweet 16s. They were always in the top half of the league. In fact, still historically, they're number 6 or number 7 in this league in wins against opponents. So they know that basketball is a lot easier because it only takes 2 or 3 to turn you into a contender. So I do think you've got something there. I think that's probably true.
Momolo, is Tyler Lawrence back and is Vanderbilt just sitting on this info for some reason? Are we trying for a true big man, or are we going with a stable of 6'8" guys?
I think Tyron's back, but I don't have any 100% knowledge of that, but I do think he's coming back here. I don't see any reason why, with what I'm hearing on the money side of things, why would he go anywhere else? I don't understand why he would, unless, of course, we're counting nickels and dimes here. I think he's coming back to Vanderbilt. I do. And I think we'll find out within a week.
Is it fair to say the amount he's going to get from Vanderbilt is well into 6 figures?
I think that's very fair.
Yeah, I've heard different amounts, but that part has not changed. Okay, let's see. I think we got another basketball one, or do we? No, we don't. Okay, so let's go to football. Here's a fun one. Henry Nichols, did DeJayus Richard get tampered with?
That's funny you say that. I was trying to find out. I went on their website to try to find out their coaching staff and their support staff to see if I know anybody on there that has a connection to Vanderbilt.
Meaning at Miami. Yeah.
Yes, and I don't, because I had been told that it was LSU by 3 different people. So I thought for sure that he was just going home, and you can understand that one. The Miami connection, I don't know where that is, but there's got to be something in there. They just didn't pull DeJayus Richards out of the hat. There's got to be some connection there.
I got some really specific info on that almost the moment he went into the portal. I was asked not to share it, but let's just say that I think the answer to that is yes, and the destination does not surprise me.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah. Okay. I think we got one more. Midge's VU. Chris, is there any football talk? You and Luke's take on what you both believe Vanderbilt's record will be this coming season. And redshirt freshmen, there'll be different makers. Perhaps some of us haven't thought about who might have been injured in the spring.
Well, I don't know of any injuries, knock on wood, coming out of the spring, but that of significance. I just tell people this. I'm going to stick to this. Unless we get catastrophic injuries, we're going bowling next year. So, folks, make your holiday plans. Vanderbilt will be at least 6-6 next year. That's as simple as I can tell you. I just think we're going to be better at just about every position. Secondary worries you a little bit. That's probably the biggest concern is making sure. But I think our pass rush is going to be so much better, and our defensive packages that we're able to put out there. But now that you got kids that understand their roles and have played together, I mean, we finally got some guys on the field that have had a lot of reps, and that's so important in football. So important.
Redshirt freshmen, and this is off the top of my head, I don't have a roster in front of me. I mean, they signed, 5 DBs last year or 6. One is gone now. He's at Miami.
Yeah.
That they thought were guys that could all potentially make an impact for them. I think one of those guys will probably step up at some point. I don't know if that's Barry or Santinola or who it's going to be. Gaskins will be the other one, because I think a corner is where there's more need for help. Trying to think of other. No, Mahoney's back. I'm just curious as to whether he's going to be a true corner now.
That's what I'm saying. I know he's back. I'm just asking, does he go to corner?
I think you almost have to.
Yeah.
Let me think. Cole Spence. Cole Spence is the easy answer there.
Yeah.
The tight end.
Right.
Because he'll start.
Yes.
Any update on Miles Capers? This also from Midge. I mean, he didn't play all spring. He was on the sidelines. He's recovering from knee injury and didn't take a rep. So how that goes in the fall, I don't know.
No, and I think he's full. I think he will start camp. They'll start him in slowly because of the rust, but I think they're just going to kind of get him acclimated right up till first game.
Yeah, Midge also has some nice words to say about you being on the pod, which I would second. So there's that. I think we're out of mailbag questions. Let me just double check. Let me hit refresh just to make sure nothing came in as we're doing this. And while I'm doing that, I'll get your parting thoughts.
Well, let's go back, Chris, to first of the year, if you don't mind. I'd like to do a little bit of a review since the regular season's over. I think you had us at 16-14. I have us at 17-13. Well, we were both wrong. We go 19-11. We more than likely are a national seed, which is, again, a little better than I thought. I thought we'd get maybe a regional and then have to go somewhere else possibly to try to get to Omaha. But this team has done its job again. You can say what you want about, this is week 9 wins 2 out of 3 in Baton Rouge. So to think that was 100% easy was not the case. So I just feel like it was if you gave a grade to this season, I think it was an A-. With all the factors, especially the last 4 weeks of the struggles, except for the Kentucky series and then Arkansas this weekend, with the injuries to the pitching staff, how they overcame all that and had one big magical inning that turned things around. And I think these kids have all the weight of the world off their shoulders now and go to Hoover and play loose as shell corn.
Yeah, I'll add some thoughts here. You and I were on the same page with preseason expectations. I thought this was a 16, 17 win team probably. I thought they would host one weekend but not two. And I had some doubts about that.
Right.
The SEC, they went 19-11. And by the way, from runs scored and given up, that wasn't a fluke. They quote unquote should have won 18. So, a win is not a big departure from what they were. I always look at that. In other words, did you kind of luck your way into a good record, and they didn't. So there's that. And I think if you had said, look, they're going to do this, they're going to be missing Carter Holton for basically half the season. I mean, you can count that South Carolina game as part of it, but no, that wasn't Carter Holton out there.
Neither was Alabama.
Yeah. I mean, so for all, and it was even worse than that because you could have started somebody else and gotten probably better results. I mean, I don't know, and I'm not bagging on Carter Holton. It just is. He clearly was not well, and he clearly, I think, decided, hey, I'm gonna be a good teammate and pitch when maybe he wasn't ready. Is my guess on it. Semi-informed guess. So no knock on the kid. I love him, love what he does. But it just is what it is. And then if you'd said Hunter Owen and Andrew Dukanich are going to – Owen is going to miss a third of the SEC season, and Dukanich is going to be a complete non-factor due to injury, I would have been like – and then if you said, oh, by the way, the SEC is going to be every bit as good as people think it's going to be, and I think if this wasn't the best conference in the history of college baseball this season – I don't know where you would go. I mean, 9 teams, Luke, 9 teams in the mix to host. 4 teams should be national seeds, and your 2 defending national champions are the 2 teams that didn't make Hoover. I mean, if it gets any tougher than that, I don't know how to. I don't know what other scenario you'd have a tougher league than what you got. Oh no, by the way they're built is pitching and defense, the bats and the balls are juiced to the point where it's almost impossible to pitch. Think about that a minute. 3 of their first 4 starters were non-factors or didn't even play going down the stretch. The game is played in a way that is completely opposite to the way he wants to play it, and here they are at 19-10. And if they beat Florida 1 game down there, they're overall SEC champs. I mean, when you look at it like that, they've had a tremendous year.
Absolutely. And, Chris, talking about the league, let's just think about this. Okay, the worst team in this league is Ole Miss. They went 6-24 because of pitching more than anything. Look at their lineup. How many of those kids there are going to be pro prospects? You got Shotnia, you got the shortstop, Gonzalez, they got all kinds of talent, and they were 14th. It's
Luke, their whole lineup was back, except for the ones that weren't back. They were replaced with transfers who'd been productive players at other places.
Yes, that's what's amazing. They were the worst team in this league, and they couldn't sniff Hoover. They couldn't sniff Hoover. It just makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee was the preseason number 2 and is battling just to get a host spot. LSU was this juggernaut with, a major league pitching coach, and Florida's got all those guys back and a couple of, everything was set up for them. Everything was already set up for them to have reasons why if it didn't happen. Then the season comes and you got more reasons why. And they're at the heart of the way the team is built. And again, they're 19-11 and they got a bye in Hoover.
And they're also, again, consistency. They are the only team that's gone to 17 straight NCAA tournaments. They got the longest now that Florida State's out, or assume they won't win the tournament, their conference tournament. So that's why he's consistent with what he does. And you can look at Mississippi State and Ole Miss and say the same thing. They didn't even make Hoover, and they were the last 2 national champions. But Vanderbilt is a constant. Vanderbilt has been the constant.
Yeah. Any more parting thoughts on your end?
No, just looking forward to a conference tournament and then find out who we're going to play.
Yeah. And just a podcast note going forward, I think Chip Frederick and I are going to record on Thursday. This is my schedule for the next week and a half. I am going to be going to Loveland, Colorado, where my in-laws live. We fly out Thursday afternoon. The kids are going to skip their last day of school. My twin nieces, are finishing high school. They're headed to Texas Tech next year. So as soon as we get through the weekend graduation stuff, their whole family's flying to Cancun. We're going with them. So I will leave this Thursday, and I will not get back till Saturday night. So I'm not going to be in Hoover. I won't be there for the first game of the regional. If I hit everything right, and if the plane is not delayed, then I'm probably going to take an Uber from the airport, from our flight back from Mexico, straight to Hawkins Field to try to cover if they win the Friday night game, they'd be in the winner's bracket. They'd play that night. I'm hoping to make it just in time for first pitch, and I don't have anybody. I don't have any backup, so I'll be covering everything else from TV where I can when we're not doing family stuff. And the podcast schedule, I would imagine, Luke, maybe Monday afternoon after the tournament bracket, you and I or you and Chip do something. But I think my guess is that's going to be the schedule. I'll take my equipment with me to Colorado and Mexico and hopefully be able to catch some games down there and be able to talk about it intelligently. But unfortunately, we won't have an on the ground presence at any of that until Saturday night of the regional at the soonest.
Well, I only have one question after all of that.
Sure.
Does Oreo get to make the trip?
No, Oreo is staying with my brother for 2 days, which is about the limit that anybody can probably handle him. And then he's going to the kennel for a week. And like Oreo is one of those dogs that, like, the minute he walks in, everybody there knows who he is. So yeah, it's in a good way. They love him.
I'm
but
sure.
he can be a handful, as you may be aware.
Well, enjoy your trip, Chris, and I'll talk to you when you get back.
Hey, thanks a bunch, Luke.
You bet.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. We thank our presenting sponsor, Jody Jones DDS. We thank our other sponsors, Sutherland and Belk and MyPerfectFranchise.net. If you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, and that's how we make this work, please email me at chrislee70@gmail.com. We also ask that you subscribe to our website, vandysports.com. That is $99 a year. You get things there that you don't get here. And of course, please rate, review, and subscribe where you see our podcast. That helps us get noticed. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at vandysports.com. Follow me at chrislee70. And finally, subscribe to our Vandy Sports YouTube channel as well. Thank you for listening to the Vandy Sports Podcast, which is part of the 440 Network. I'm your host, Chris Lee. We'll catch you with another episode coming very soon.